I'm calling the December 14th, 2017 meeting of the hearings of the Conservation Commission of the town of Mashpee. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the commission about anything that is not on the agenda? Okay. So, Drew, if you'd like to.
Sure. So we have a couple of approvals. First is there's a typo on your agenda. The meeting minutes are from November 9th, not November 11th. So this is for approval of the November 9th, 2017 meeting minutes.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All approved?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Pass?
Thank you. Next up, another vote to approve the 2018 Conservation Commission meeting calendar, which has been posted online, or not posted online yet, but should have a copy in your folder. But you do need to take a formal vote to approve those dates for the 2018 calendar year.
Motion to approve the 2018 Conservation Commission calendar.
Second.
Those approved?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Pass?
If we have time for one more brief agenda item before we get into the hearing schedule.
Sure.
I'll try to be brief. There's this is a second pre-post hearing agenda item. It's enforcement order for 205 Uncle Percy's Road. You'll have this to sign at the end of the meeting. This was a project that came before you through an RDA. It was for some additions to a home and some I think new reconstruction of the existing home, portions of it. It was an RDA because all the work was outside the 50-foot buffer and there was really no disturbance. However, when I went back just to check on the work taking place, there were several violations, specifically for cutting of trees and cutting and pruning of shrubs within the 50-foot setback. This is to Hook Pond and New Seabury, related to water bodies and waterways. So that's what this enforcement order is for you to sign. As I've stated in the past, enforcement orders are a way to achieve compliance without going through a notice of intent, particularly for activities that would not have been approved under the bylaw to begin with, and this is one of those activities. It was up to, I believe, 12 trees were removed. They were all sapling-sized trees, several shrubs, and then there were other shrubs within the first 20 to 30 feet of the pond that were pruned. So some of the work may have been allowed, but other parts would not have been allowed. So that's why it's an enforcement order, and that's just so you guys know that you'll be signing that at the end of the meeting tonight.
Opening the 6 o'clock hearing. This is the Save Upper Mesa Bay Incorporated for Rear Waiting Place Road. The applicant has requested an additional continuance to January 12th, 2017 at 6 p.m. Any discussion?
Motion to approve continuance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is continued. As stated. Opening the 603 hearing, Templar Holdings LLC, 9 Tulip Shell Way. This is a proposed dock modification and addition of a boat ramp.
This
This
has
was
been, sorry.
Continued at the request of the applicant from 10/12, 10/26, and 11/9 to address concerns of the harbor master and the shellfish constable.
So the applicant has requested an additional continuance, so we didn't have time to put it on the agenda. They are still working with the harbor master and shellfish warden over this particular project. There's some disagreement as to the design, so they are requesting another continuance to January 12th, 2018 at 6:03.
Okay. So that's the 6:03. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Move to continue to January 12th at 6:03.
Correct, yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Uh-oh, better slow
Make sure the
down.
participants, just make sure they're here. We're running ahead of schedule. We
Yeah.
have to have-
I can go over another
Feel
pre-agenda
free.
item. Since we have
Please do.
some.
We don't know how to act to it.
So, so we have in your folders, and I did send this out to everybody, hopefully you all received it. These are proposed bylaw changes. They should have a packet. Everybody had this in your folder? The first thing I wanted to ask is if you've all had a chance to review these, and you will have any questions about them. There were a couple, there was one in particular where I was unsure about wording. This is, just so you know, to give some background on this, why I went through the bylaw like this. I actually serve on the bylaw review committee, which is a committee that's been around for years but hasn't actually been formulated until this year. There's been a gap for the last several years that the committee just hasn't met and gone over. So we're meeting with all the departments to review any kind of bylaw changes that they want to make. And our turn is coming up next at our next meeting for commission. So these are the changes that I've proposed. Most of them are just wording corrections, some citation errors that, citations of the Mass Wetlands Protection Act that were incorrect in the current wording. We can go through them page by page if you'd like, or if you feel you need any additional time, we can table this for the next meeting on January 12th. It's your call. So if anyone has any questions, now will be the time to bring them up.
So there was one you said you wanted to point out?
Yeah, this is on page, sorry that this page is on number, but it's page 5. Page 5, section B. It reads, when the filer of a request for determination is other than the owner, the notice and copy of the request shall also be mailed to the owner. What I was looking for.
This is the one you called out in the email, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Suggestions on changing the wording. Anyone can file for an RDA under the Wetlands Protection Act. However, if the applicant and property owner are not one and the same, then the applicant must furnish written permission from the property owner to the commission as part of the permit application. In other words, that written permission has to come before you while they're presenting that request for determination. So
we've always assumed that, right?
it's always been done. We've always followed that. It's just that this particular wording is not exactly, doesn't really
No.
state that. So it says that notice and copy of the request shall also be mailed to the owner. So what I'm suggesting is to change the wording to stipulate that written permission must be presented at the time of the hearing from the property owner if the applicant and property owner are not one and the same. Something to that effect, I think we can figure out.
Permission be granted by the applicant?
By the property owner, if the applicant is applying for a request for determination on property that they don't own. So, or a portion of the project that lies on someone else's property.
It happens a lot in seasonal homes where the owner is far away and they just hire an engineering firm and expects the engineering firm to take it from there.
Right.
But we would need to know that the owner is in fact
Yeah.
in compliance or in agreement with
Right.
the spokesperson.
And sometimes you'll get applications, for instance, like a good example would be like a hazardous tree removal that's on the neighbor's property. And it's causing a hazardous situation onto the applicant's property. They may not know that they need the neighbor's permission. Something like that would be another example where they would need to provide written authorization. Vista pruning is another one. If two properties want to do vista pruning together, or if someone's looking to do vista pruning on someone else's property, their neighbor's property, we want to make sure that neighbor's aware of it through their written permission. So those are some of the examples where I think this wording needs to reflect that. And I think we can come up with the right kind of wording, and what I'll do is I'll come up with some draft, and you can review it. and we can come up with the proper wording. There's no rush for it, so we have plenty of time.
Does your wording get checked by town council?
Yes,
So
everything on the town meeting warrant will be checked by.
give it a shot.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think that was the only one that I had a question on. Let's see. Oh, okay, page 10, number 5. It states driving of piles, erection or exterior repair of buildings or structures of any kind. This is prefaced under the definition of alter, which is under section 172-9 on page 9. I'd like to change that to just construction activities, because that current wording is a little too specific. I think it may confuse anyone who's reading it, that it's just, that alter is just related to those particular activities. Driving of piles, erection of or exterior repair of buildings or structures of any kind. I just think that construction activities is a better terminology for those.
So then there's wording that will allow you to give examples, but
Yeah.
not specific. Right, such as, i.e.
Because driving of piles, I mean, that's a regular part of any sort of proposed dock, coastal dock. And so, and it is altering, but it's also, acceptable for a dock permit, so. Any questions on that one?
Well, the only comment I would have is, there are construction activities that they do not have to come to us for. If they're redoing their kitchen or something.
And that's already stated in the bylaw, that it gives some examples of like exterior work, windows, painting, those sorts of things are things that are exempt from any sort of permitting requirement. So I just saw driving of piles as something that kind of triggered a red flag, or may cause some confusion. And number 7, a couple below there, placing of obstructions of objects in water. I don't really know what that means. If anyone has any ideas about what that means, obstructions of objects in water. So what I'm proposing is just to strike that entirely, because I really don't know what that refers to or how that's to be defined.
A neglected bayliner comes to mind.
Placing of obstructions in water may make more sense, but this is worded very strangely, so I think that's,
You can just take out, if you take out all objects.
Yeah. remove of objects, placing of obstructions in water. I mean, that's really, that would really fall under the harbor master anyway. It's kind of a, we would know about obstructions in water through the permitting process if anything, caught our attention, but I just didn't think it really made a lot of sense to have that in there. And then I'm proposing a new word to have a definition for, and this was straight from town council, this definition of adverse effect, which is just below the word person, again on page 10.
Yeah.
That's all proposed new language that has been gone through town council's review, because we didn't have any, we use that term quite a bit. It's a defining kind of criterion for whether a project needs to be conditioned or denied. It's the barometer basically of everything that we review, is whether or not it has an adverse effect. So I felt that's important to have a definition in the bylaw.
That is
for
our
it.
standard, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. Everything else is just kind of a, update, citation change, wording corrections. Those are the really only substantive changes that I saw.
So, you're looking for us to approve the.
To take a vote of approval for these changes, and then what I can do is go back to the bylaw review committee and say that, yes, my commission has reviewed these changes. This is their feedback, and this is what we want to put on the 2018 October town meeting warrant for approval. It would go through the town meeting process, and then it would go to the state's attorney general for state approval.
I don't know, does anyone feel that they would really rather go through a look, or?
I've already read them carefully.
I was able to go through them.
Okay. So, if there's no other discussion, open the audience, and I'd like to hear a motion.
I would move that we accept and endorse the changes that Drew has prepared in regards to chapter 172 of our wetland bylaw.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
It's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, now,
Moving on,
now we get to it.
opening the 606 hearing for Kevin Dorney, 44 Shore Drive. This is a proposed addition of a deck to an existing structure, an RDA.
I've never done it before, so.
So just introduce yourself, your address, and you can figure that out, and you talk, you can introduce yourself after. Correct.
My name's Kevin Dorney, and I'm the property owner at 44 Shore Drive. Paul Betancourt, who will be the contractor who would actually perform services, assuming the Conservation Commission approves our request for the addition to a garage to an existing, the addition of a deck to an existing structure that we have at that location.
Okay.
A pretty straightforward application. You all have the plan?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. So you can see it's, conversion, there's the photograph. Top right, this is the room, the garage, existing garage that's to be converted to a three-season sunroom. And the deck will wrap around the front side of the driveway and then the side of the garage here, which is the picture below. This property, just so you know, the resource area is flood zone only, it's landlocked within the flood zone. It's several hundred feet away from any other coastal resource area. But because it is in the flood zone, it does trigger your review. So, but I don't see any impact from this proposal.
Are there any comments from the audience?
We asked the question of Drew, given that you're gonna eliminate a garage, it means that somewhere the cars are gonna have to park on the property. Do we
That's right.
care, do we care, or do we need to see that spelled out in terms of where the pervious or impervious area is gonna be to park those cars off the road?
I can
Yeah,
check into that. if I
sure,
could.
absolutely.
Um,
Just use the microphone there.
Oh, sure.
You can take it off the stand too, if
Okay.
you'd like.
The garage, essentially, it'll be a deck that extends 5 feet from the current garage opening. So the existing driveway will remain in its place.
Okay.
It'll be cut back a little bit, which arguably could enhance
Sure.
drainage, I guess. But the existing driveway would remain in effect.
Any other discussion?
There are 2 spots in front of the garage as well as 2 more on the side, so there still will be 4 spots.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can see the, it's kind of shaded out, that's the.
That's right. That area.
Do I have a motion?
Motion for a negative determination for the deck addition to 44 Shore Drive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good to go.
Just so
Appreciate
you
your help.
clarify, the negative determination is a little
You
counterintuitive.
mentioned
It's-
that, otherwise it would have. Thank
It's
you.
approved.
You had me going.
Relax.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Opening the 619 hearing for Mario and Gina Recupero, 9 Tufton Road. This is for for the proposed construction of a seasonal dock. This is a notice of intent.
My name is Mario Recupero. I own the home on 9 Tuscaloosa Road here in Mashpee, and looking for a dock on the property.
Okay,
So this is one I had handed out, you saw that there's a slight revision on the plan from the one that was originally in your folders.
This is the, he handed this out.
yep.
I have another copy of that if you don't have one, or you can look on.
Okay.
So the original plan showed dashed lines going across Secana Drive. Secana Drive, by the way, is just a beach. It's an old ancient road. Some parts are underwater, some parts are above water, some parts are paved, some parts are beach. But it's a recognized road under the town. So you saw in the original plan dashed lines taking a different direction from the edge of the property line over Secana Drive. And the revised plan shows those dashed lines going straight out from the property line out onto the beach. Just so you know, the residents in this area on Secana Drive do have legal documentation that allows them to use this Secana Drive to access the water and to have docks. So that, I think it was some sort of court decision that one of the residents had gone through just to show you, because you'll see that the property line ends at Secana Drive, and this is a dock going from Secana
In
Drive.
the middle of the road, so that's.
If anyone had any questions about that. So this, because Johns Pond is mapped under Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program as a rare species habitat due to the freshwater mussels that exist in Johns Pond, the applicant did have to apply for Natural Heritage. They have 30 days to comment. As you're all aware, that rarely matches up with our meetings. So if you were to approve this project, it's a seasonal dock, then we would withhold issuance of the permit until we get that letter, which I would anticipate should be within the next couple of weeks, and I don't anticipate any adverse impact from this dock. At worst, they may require it to change positions a little bit to get it out of any mussel habitat they feel it may disturb. But other than that, I don't see any issues with this application.
So, Rick, you're telling us that there's no issue. That's in reference to the shellfish, or?
Yeah, Rick's, I mean, these shellfish, because they're not a harvestable variety, I mean, they certainly contribute to water quality because they're filter feeders. But Rick pretty much defers to the state Natural Heritage when it comes to freshwater mussels. Land-containing shellfish is more his purview, which is the coastal shellfish areas. He pretty much defers to the state when it comes to rare species habitat.
I'm just curious, I don't remember him commenting on any freshwater docks.
He usually just tells us he has no issue, and then he forgets to submit the actual paperwork to tell us. It's a verbal thing in perpetuity, I guess, right? Is it?
We're not being recorded tonight anyway.
So, this composite decking, is it solid? I mean, it's the usual, what we usually look for is decking that allows light to get through, to some extent.
Right. I have, the company that I'm using has done multiple docks on the pond.
Yeah.
The composite material that they use is something he says is very common on that water. And there are sections that are 12-foot sections that are removable.
Yeah, the light penetration really comes into play when you're talking about the expansive docks over salt marsh. There really isn't much submerged aquatic vegetation in the near shore areas of Johns Pond. It's either sand or cobble. So you get out to a certain distance where it becomes more prevalent, but there's no bordering vegetated wetland or freshwater marsh in this area. It's just straight transition from beach or bordering land subject to flooding to land under water bodies and waterways, which is Johns Pond.
Are you, I'm sorry, would you like to comment?
I'm Timothy Cunningham, I'm the abutter of number 7 Tuscaloosa. Number 15 uses the same composite decking for their dock. It was approved 9 years ago.
Okay. Good to know. It hasn't been our usual practice. Anyone have any opinions?
Well, again, I think it's deal different between the freshwater ponds and the ocean. I think that's the difference. There's vegetation growing under many docks along the coast. And we want to keep that growing. But here, there really isn't vegetation.
And they're permanent structures too on the coast,
Okay, these
year round.
True.
these things are removed and come back to life.
Okay.
So I would move that we close an issue in regards to this application, Mario and Gina Recupero, at 9 Tuscan Road.
Is there any further discussion of that
Sorry.
move, of that? Well, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. 6/12/63.
Okay. Opening the 6/12 hearing for Robert A. and Nancy A. Fix at 63 Clover Lane. Proposed demolition and reconstruction of a single-family home. This is a notice of intent.
Yes, Paul Betancourt, I'll be constructing the house as well as razzing the existing. It's a house that's been there, they've owned it since 1961. Gonna take it down. We're actually reducing the lot coverage. We're gonna have dry wells on the property too. So we don't have to create any water issues for any of the neighbors, hopefully. We're in compliance and zoning and, so everything is, hopefully legal and everything looks good. I don't know if you have any questions for me?
Drew?
So again, just to point out, this is, you can see the highlighted lot. Land subject to coastal storm flow, landlocked right here. It's a low-lying area, the Pompanesett Village area, but it is entirely mapped within the flood zone. That was gonna be my only question as to, you're gonna capture all the runoff on the property so that it doesn't become an issue for neighbors, because I know that that's an area where flooding in the streets is
Yeah.
common. So we wanna make,
Proposed dry wells to alleviate any problems with the neighbors, so we, hopefully
okay,
don't have any issues
okay.
with water runoff.
One thing that we did, and it's not anything that can't be taken care of very easily, is that on the plan that was drawn by the engineers, we didn't see any sort of flood zone designation. In other words, the plan doesn't indicate that the property lies within the flood zone. And that is required if a property lies within the flood zone, that designation be shown on the plan, just a little sidebar or something like that. So if you can speak to the engineer, get a revised plan to show that flood zone designation. It doesn't change anything about the project, it's just a requirement under our bylaw that be shown on a plan.
Okay.
And it's just as simple as showing it as a wording on the plan to say that this property is in the flood zone. The other thing is you'll want to talk to the Board of Health, because they said they haven't, they've received insufficient information, an application incomplete. So you want to speak to the Board of Health about this if you haven't already. Have you spoken to the Board of Health about it?
I thought I had it already signed off with them.
Okay,
I'll recheck.
okay, yeah, because that was their comment to the, yeah.
And I have an application with them, and,
Yeah, they have the application on file, I think they just need some additional information.
okay, I'll check with them, make sure they get it,
Okay.
whatever it is.
So that's my biggest concern, was just capture of runoff, roof runoff, and making sure that it's contained on the property through dry wells. And then just you may wanna since the plan, needs to show the flood zone, I would also show the dry well locations on the plan.
We have,
Is that on there?
it's not on there?
Oh, I'm sorry, Septic cover,
Two on the north side,
you see it, I don't see them.
that's not on the.
Yeah, you wanna have that shown, just
I have,
through
I have
symbol.
what it has.
Okay.
I don't,
Okay. So since the Board of Health does have an application, I think we're okay with that. I mean, understanding, of course, that'll have to be taken care of before you can actually proceed. And if I understand this all correctly, then all looks good, except that the plan does need to be modified in 2 ways.
Correct.
And I would think we could approve with with that condition
Yeah,
that we've done before it's actually issued.
I would make it a point to include that in the motion.
Yeah, so we'll be looking for a motion, that those 2 changes will be included, and we'll be approving your NOI for issuance when that's done.
Very good.
I have a motion.
So I would move that we approve, close and issue this application of Robert and Nancy Phipps at 63 Clover Lane with 2 stipulations. One is to show one at least is to show the flood zone. The second is to include location of dry wells, and it is all subject to approval by the Board of Health. Did I cover it all? Yep. Okay, that's it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Approved?
Good to go.
Thank you, have a great Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, you got it.
Maybe we found it.
Okay.
Opening a 6:15 hearing for Leslie A. Wagner Kaplan, 10 Kaplan House at Island Road. This is the proposed amendment of the order of conditions 43, 28, 53 to allow for tree removal, mitigation planting, and hardscape improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Matt Costa, Cape Islands Engineering. We're here tonight requesting to amend the existing order of conditions on this property due to a slight alteration in proposed landscaping. Some of you, this has been an ongoing project for about 4 years. Some of you probably are familiar with it, but we're out here on this point. This is where you drive right over the bridge, going on the Continental Island, and we're constructing a new house out here on this point. We were before you for under 2 different notices of intent applications for work on the shoreline, doing bulkhead and repairs along this event out here, and then there's another one for the house. So we're here tonight specifically for the addition of fire pit in this particular area over here. We're located at the fire pit where there's an existing damaged pine tree. It might seem like a relatively small change in the overall scope of things. And the reason that we're actually here under this amended order is because this work that we're asking, this additional work we're asking for is outside the previously approved limit of work. So you'll see on the plan, the original limit of work is right here, and we're proposing to relocate that limit of work and construct the fire pit. And along with the fire pit, we're also proposing necessary mitigation. We went through the mitigation calculations and showed those on the plan under your mitigation, under mitigation requirements. You see in the bottom lower corner. Specifically, we're going to be replacing this damaged tree with 3 new trees. Yes, 3. We're going to be planting some woody shrubs in this particular area here, and then turning this existing lawn area into wild meadow grass. There's a second proposed mitigation area down over here, where there's also additional woody shrubs to be planted in existing lawn area, and a portion of an existing lawn area to be replaced with meadow grasses. The shrubs have all been, the species that we're going to be used are all called out here on the right in both areas. This is a relatively minor change. I did review it with Drew ahead of And because, again, we're working outside the approved limit of work, that's why we're here tonight with this new plan. Here's the damaged tree right there. So,
This is a shame that you have to take that. You know, Pebble
It's a
Beach-
specimen.
Pebble Beach
I
is
know,
the
it's
lone
a
specimen,
specimen.
and we have the ugly pitch pine.
and we
I mean,
worked
this
really
is-
hard to save this other
everybody
tree
knows
over
that
here, and we were sad, she was sad to lose this one. At any rate, so the fire pit's going here, and you can see where the lunar work's gonna be reconfigured, and this lawn area is gonna be basically turned to mitigation area. That's really it in a nutshell, in respect to the request, issue amended order of conditions. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Not really much to add, just wanted to point out that pitch pine, that was a storm damage that caused that. It was damage from a recent storm that caused that to the pitch pine. This does fall under the waiver request because, as you can see, it's within 50 feet of the top of the coastal bank. Can't really tell from the photograph. The photograph on the right kind of shows, but it is an armored bank. If you look beyond the silk curtain there, you can see some of the revetment stones on that side. So it is an armored coastal bank, therefore it's not a sediment source bank. So the placement of the fire pit going over existing turf, I think it would be, in my opinion, is a minor scope project. And given the mitigation to eliminate further turf and introduce native species on a lot where around the house there isn't a lot of native species, it's mostly just turf, is a good exchange, and I would recommend approval of the amended request.
Any comments from the audience? Discussion in the committee? Objections? Looks like an improvement to the property to me. Unfortunate that pine is broken, but this isn't going to look anything but better, and I don't see any, negative effect on the water quality or anything else we have concerns about. So, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the amended order.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're opening the hearing, the 6:18 hearing for Green Morton, 26 South Pond Circle. Proposed removal of trees to allow for a septic system upgrade. This is an NOI.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer Delmore. I'm with Outback Engineering in Middleborough. We're representing Ian Morgan tonight. What we have here is just a septic upgrade to bring the system into compliance with codified regulations. The system itself is outside of the 100-foot setback to the pond, Gin Pond. And it's also outside of the 75-foot buffer to the wetland. The tank and the pump chamber are within the 75-foot buffer to the wetland and within the 100-foot to the pond as well. And we asked the Board of Health for variances to get the system so close to the road, since we had to kind of, jam it up near the road here to get it outside of that 100-foot setback to the pond. That's why it's kind of so crammed up there. And a couple of trees, there's 3 trees right here that'll have to come down where the system's going in. And then there's 1 tree down here that it looks like they're probably gonna have to take down to get that pump chamber in there. And the Board of Health has signed off on it.
Is the leaching field a raised, like, rectangular box?
Is it what?
Or is it go down to, is it level with the surface?
It's gonna, well, let me double check actually. It's gonna be, yeah, it looks like it's gonna be level, there's no change in grade.
Okay.
You mean to what it is existing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Board of Health is, property is in a Zone 2, plans approved for a conventional Title V system with pump chamber to accommodate the existing three-bedroom dwelling. Application approved on the plan dated November 15, 2017 by Outback Engineering.
I guess I'm just wondering about this configuration of the leach field. It has these cone-shaped support and then panels on the ends. I mean, well, that seems like a lot of structure for something that's gonna be acting as a septic system and right near the resource.
You mean,
100 feet away
Well, it's 100 feet away from the resource.
the resource area.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay.
yeah, it's somewhere 100 feet away from the pond setback and over 75 feet away from the wetland, the bordering vegetated wetland that comes off of the pond here. This green one I put on here is the wetland, and the blue one's the pond. And then over here, this pink line I highlighted is the setback to the pond, and this, the orange one is 75 feet to the wetland. So the edge of the system is actually outside of the setback to the pond, and just slightly within the 100-foot buffer to the wetland.
Well, you've told me that that the leaching field is buried down to ground level, so I guess my concerns are gone.
It's I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking. It's definitely gonna be buried, and the final grade is gonna be the grade that's existing right now.
Yeah, that's all right.
But it rises from the grade of the tanks, if I read this correctly. They're at elevation 16, and then the cover of the new structure is gonna be at 19.5. So it looks like it rises about 3 feet. You know, some of that perhaps is below the structure of the home, so it may not appear to be 3 feet, but from the top of the foundation of the home, which is at 16, and then the top of the structure looks like, if I'm reading correctly, is 19.5.
Right, and it does, the elevation, the natural elevation of the lot does rise as we go this way. So I think, I mean,
It
right
does.
here,
I know the property, it does
Yeah.
rise up the Fells Pond Circle, so
right,
there is a natural grade up. The home is tucked away,
right.
so it may not be, it may be that way today. I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand.
So what is your concern?
I'm just trying to elaborate. I don't have much concern. I think it will, in all, solve the problem, and we won't know anything about the grade once it's settled in. And it's getting it outside of the resource, it's far away from the resource area, so from that standpoint, I think it's probably a very improved situation.
Yeah. The tree in the rear of the house, you said, may or may not be removed, or it is going to be removed, or
It is a mounded
undecided at
system.
this point, or?
It is a mounded system, because it is existing, because there's existing and that's the after.
Yeah, you got the cross section.
If you see the cross-section, it's a mounded system.
This is a cross section, a mounded
Okay.
system.
It is a mounded system.
Oh, it is a mounted system.
You can see at the cross-section,
Definitely is.
where it says,
Say, Tom, it's a-
if you look at the cross-section, it's a mounted system. So it says existing grade, and then it says, what the grade is gonna be after.
Okay, that's what.
But you have to do that probably to get above groundwater.
Yeah, exactly.
Does the construction of the new septic tanks inside the 75-foot buffer trigger any mitigation planting?
Only if it's within, it would be a one-to-one.
So if the two trees that are very close here come out, they have to be replaced?
Yes, and the tree in the back too, so just so the homeowners are aware,
Just
That-
these two.
yeah, those would trigger some sort of compensatory planting, and when it comes to compensatory planting, it's always as close to the wetland edge as possible to beef up whatever buffer exists in that area.
Okay, so we just.
So where you have the BBW line there,
Yep,
somewhere if there's any, available space for planting of shrubs, or
anywhere
trees
back here,
in that general vicinity, yep, yeah,
maybe right here.
yep.
Okay,
But that's something,
So we need a calculation of what the mitigation needs to be, or
One
statement of it?
it's one-to-one, so I don't think it's necessary to do any sort of calculating, but,
So, but it does need to be noted.
yeah.
would that be something we could put conditioning?
Yeah, it can be a condition in the order, this is a notice of intent, so it can be a condition.
I don't see any reason why that would slow us down this evening. Are there any comments from the audience? Just to be clear, there are how many trees that will need to be?
Up to two possibly.
There's only two within the 75-foot buffer that are in jeopardy.
So you just need that mentioned in the second
Yeah,
motion?
but isn't there at least, it's outside of 75 feet, there's 3 trees showing.
Not the.
No, that's outside the one.
It's outside the 100 foot.
If you go back to those septic tanks.
Yeah.
Those others are fine.
Well, I would move that we close an issue with the stipulation that the notations need to be added to the plan, as we discussed.
Exactly.
So if I understand the motion that's just been seconded, as many trees as have to be replaced will be mitigated with plantings. Is that correct? Right. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Andrew,
Pass.
how many copies would you need of the plan with that additional note? Two,
Just two.
and I could just send this in the mail,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
$5, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
it just won't be issued until it's actually received.
But, yeah, I could probably get it in there tomorrow.
That's,
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Good to go.
Merry Christmas.
did you all take the votes that,
Sorry?
you took the individual vote count to approve?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going too fast for you.
Yeah, you guys gotta slow down, I'm getting up there.
Opening the 621 hearing for Donna Beckett, Yellow Wall, if I can do, trustee 161 Timberline Drive. This is the proposed construction of a single-family home, garage, septic system upgrade, landscape pipe stage improvement. This is the NOI.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jack Landis Colley. I'm a civil engineer in private practice. I have an office at 634 North Falmouth Highway. I need to do a little housekeeping. Here are 3 sets of plans that I believe, been changed. I had a conversation with the staff, and they wanted us to identify top of bank differently. So we've made those changes, and I just want that, when we're reviewing the project, you have the correct plan. So that was the only change, that what we did is we showed, and I'll explain what we did. We actually showed the offset from the inland bank as defined by the state. Drew requested that I remove that and show the offsets to the inland bank as defined by your local bylaw. We have done that. Here are the cards. All the abutters were notified. All the green slips came back as well as the DEP. This project is interesting in that there's a lot of things going on, and I think I need to start by saying what those steps are. I hope to conclude this meeting in less than 20 minutes because I have a Board of Health variance request at 7:15. There are three things we need to do in order to get this project approved. The first is come to you. Second is to go to Board of Health because we're asking for certain variances from the local regulations. They can, for the most part, it complies to the state regulation. And the third is for the client to seek zoning relief. And I know those last two aren't necessarily your concern, but I'm telling you that we had to start the process, and the process started with the Conservation Commission because they felt that was most important. And then it's going to go to the Board of Health tonight, and then if we prevail in these two departments, we will then go to, or I will assist the attorney that's retained by the owner to go to the ZBA to seek relief. What we have is a vacant lot. There are houses on each side, there's a pond to the right, it's into a pond, and there's a roadway, Timber Lane Drive to the left. The left being the west side, the pond being the east side, north and south are the residences. There are also residences on the other side of the road. Like I said earlier, we notified 6 abutters. That would be these two, and then I think there's 4 on this side. Just so happens the most southerly and northerly abutters, just the corner of their lots are within this required distance for notification, so they've been notified. This lot is entirely wooded. If you were to go to the lot now, all you would see is a slope and a jungle of trees and understory. Well, that says it all right there. What we're proposing on the lot is a septic system with a septic tank, a house, a deck, and a 1-car garage. Pertinent to that is a driveway, which I have shadowed in black, a swale to a leaching pit, and another leaching pit over here. Because of the vertical drop, we're proposing a retaining wall here to pick up some of the grades. I know there's at least one builder on the board, and he knows that when you have a lot that slopes this much, we have a vertical difference, usually in the excess of 8 to 10 feet from the front to the back. So we're going to have basically a basement area here with sliders, I anticipate, that would open up and be directly under the elevated deck. The deck is going to be at the same elevation, or very close to the first floor. The septic system is 95.2 feet from the edge of the wetlands. If it were 100 feet away, it would comply not only with the state, but with the local regulation. We are proposing, because it doesn't completely comply, to put in IA technology. I think it's important, and it applies to this particular board because it's going to be a substantial reduction in the nitrogen that's going to go into the groundwater. Secondary benefits are you have BOD reduction, you have viral and bacterial reductions, and basically when you look at this project, it has maybe half the effect a normal house would have that didn't have IA technology. That's what we proposed. I'm sure the staff, when they review with you the information, you see that the Board of Health has seen this project. I think they're comment-free, and whatever comments they have will be unique to their board, and like I said, it'll be heard in about 25 minutes. We carefully designed it. We have a driveway here. We chose the elevation of the house in such a way that it was placed in such a way that we could take advantage of the grades as it slopes from the road down to the pond. As I said, the backyard is going to be substantially lower than the front yard. We also show the swale and the leaching pit. This is a limit of work. This is 50 feet. And then likewise from the deck to the pond is 40 feet. You have very exacting mitigation requirements. I am going to be asking, or I'm asking now, that we get relief from that, because the way I interpret the regulation, we have to provide some type of mitigation within 100 feet of the inland bank as defined by the local bylaw. If that's the case, we simply can't comply. I can't see it simpler than that. But what we can do is try to mitigate as best we can. So what we're proposing is, realistically, we know that this portion of the lot is going to be disturbed in some part. What's highlighted in yellow is that area that's less than 50 feet from the inland bank that will be replanted. We propose a deck here. What's shaded in green and highlighted with a darker green are areas that are going to be disturbed, but we're proposing mitigation planting. I don't show it here because there's no grade change here, and I don't show any mitigation planting here because they'll need a front step and they'll need a set of walkway to the front step. I have plans, house plans. They're kind of primitive, but they're consistent with this. It's 24 feet wide, 38 feet long, and it's got a 12 by 22 garage. So also got a deck that's 10 by 30. For the most part, this is, I think you could say, a pretty modest proposal for a property that abuts a water body. At this moment, the client needs to prepare a mitigation plan. I don't prepare them, I know just enough to get into trouble, so he has retained someone. Unfortunately, that person couldn't produce the plan for tonight's meeting. So to that end, I'll ask the board to think about deliberating on that point in either one of two things: continuing the meeting or approving it subject to a satisfactory mitigation plan be submitted and approved by the staff. That's the project. If you'd like me to answer any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What's the current condition of that slope that runs down behind the house?
It's a
Is that stable at
1.71
this point?
to 1 slope, and it's extremely stable.
I can see the upper right photo shows the vegetation going down. That's a picture of the top of the inland bank leading down to the pond. It's to well-treed.
So good.
So I did have discussions with Jack over having him bring a revised plan to show our setback from top of inland bank onto the bylaw, because that really illustrates just how much mitigation is required for this. Setbacks, the state has recognizes bylaw as the upper limit of bordering vegetative wetlands.
That's correct.
So it's quite different. under the bylaw, the definition of inland bank and setbacks thereof compared to the state. So for your purposes, I wanted those setbacks to be shown on the plan, so you see what your purview, how your purview applies to inland bank and the regulations more specifically. So as far as tight lot, and I do agree it's a relatively modest footprint to go on a lot that has, you know, some size constraints and setback constraints, not only from our regulatory purview, but other boards as well. I would like to see, because mitigation is a large component of this, and it's been stated that the calculations and numbers are just too high, given the setbacks and constraints. I would like to see a mitigation planting plan before you render a decision, so you could see it. So I would recommend a continuance, but we did agree that this is an opportunity to at least provide feedback on what's presented to you thus far, so you can get, you know, any sort of concerns known to the engineer and to the applicant at this stage, with the understanding that there will be a mitigation plan forthcoming through a recommended continuance. That's my recommendation, at least.
My first comment was going to be basically what Drew said, that where we're being asked to make an exception to the rule, we can't do that very well without seeing the mitigation plan itself.
I understand completely.
There's just one other minor thing here, and that is, you are going to have some hardscape in the front, the driveway, and as you mentioned, the walkways and stuff. So all of that is going to have an impact too.
We need to see it on the
So
plan.
I'd like to see all of that on the plan. I actually am pretty concerned about this. It's not clear to me where within, you know, what we're seeing here, it's not really clear to me how we can approve this on the basis of any possible mitigations that are obvious. I wonder, I mean, we had discussed unusual mitigations in cases that nowhere near as severe as this. Do you have any thoughts, Drew, as to something, I don't know, something off-site or like having to do with a pond or something? Because
It's possible. I think I would need to, I mean, we've had some, I think the other similar applications where we've done off-site mitigation dealt with a donation to the shellfish account, propagation account for projects that are on the coast and at that site location for
Right.
shellfish seeding.
Very
That's
specific.
obviously not the case here. So
the-
I don't really have any thoughts on off-site mitigation or compensatory, you know, other compensatory measures. If it was to be like a monetary thing to, you know, if you were to devise a formula about what the cost of the mitigation that can't fit on the lot and have that as a donation to a conservation fund, that's something I'd have to run by town council. I don't know if the
Sure.
board has the authority to do that.
Sure.
But
Of
that would
course-
be the other thought that I would have is.
Of course, Cantuit Pond itself has water issues, and so it might be something related to that. I mean, you know, my feeling, just, I can't really like speak for the commissioners or for the town. My feeling is just from what we're seeing here, as has been stated, we're going to approve it this evening, we need a little more information. But, you know, my thought is that it basically wouldn't be a buildable lot under conservation law rules in any simple way. On the other hand, we all know that it just happens to be a lot that was left vacant. All the properties around it would have similar problems if they were to be built today. It would just seem like ridiculously unfair to actually tell you people you can't use your lot that way. But I wonder if there's something we can do where the commission isn't being asked to bend the rules so far that you know, we would be open to criticism or from other people saying, hey, how come we don't get to do things that are outside the rules? So if you guys can come up with something, you know, some way that of mitigation that really is in scale to the amount of disturbance on the property within the 50 feet, that would certainly make it easier for me, as one of the votes on the commission, to approve it when we have all the details.
I agree, and where we've, in my short tenure, where we've made major exceptions to rules in the past, it's been for things that are justifiable through the habitability of the house. A stairway, location of a stairway that was too close to a setback, things of that nature. You've got a lot of square footage here that's, could be eliminated, that's not gonna damage the habitability of the house. I would love to have a garage in my lot, but my lot's a buildable lot, not within the purview of the pond. So part of your, a plan B might be to eliminate or reduce the size of some of these ancillary things that would, you know, reduce the amount of mitigation required to have.
Give you a sense of order, we're talking about 9.8% lot coverage, because I think most of the board members realize that we have an issue about lot coverage in general, whether it be the town of Mashpee, Falmouth, Bourne, you all have those new regulations, well, I consider them new, because I've been doing this so long, that deal with the mass and scope of development on a lot. So, I heard what you said. Same token, I would argue that 9.8% is pretty reasonable. Now, I'm gonna send this message back to my client. He's gonna listen, well, I'm sure he's listening if we're on TV now, but, and tell him what your concerns are.
But you're asking us to overlook the bylaws that require mitigation for the sake of a 300 square foot deck.
That's a decision he has to make, is, I can only be a spokesman.
So you see where I'm trying to trigger some thoughts of other plans that might, you know,
I
meet the
understand.
mitigation halfway, not
I
a,
understand completely, and it's a reasonable request. One of the, you know, if I were in front of the zoning board of appeals, it'd be so much clearer, because their grandfathering rules are so well defined, and they've been tested for 100 years. Conservation Commission, it's different, and, in fact, I'm not sure you have a grandfathering mechanism, which I would love to see that you have in place, but that's enough.
For
The
That's-
closest thing to it is existing
Structures.
footprint of
Yeah.
pre-existing non-conforming structures, but you're dealing with an undeveloped lot here.
Right, so if you took one of the lots that's already developed and had a shack on it, that would be a very different situation. Then it would be, an empty lot, and you're right, you don't have a, you know, sufficiently complex, complete set of grandfathering laws under the state, to, take into account the fact that that entire area isn't developed in much the same way. It's just, that isn't there.
Well, the point is, I'm gonna send a message back to the client. He's going to have to make some decisions, plain and simple. We're gonna be going to the Board of Health in a few minutes. They may have something that causes me to go in a different direction. I think, for this evening, based on what I heard, we're gonna request the continuance, to the next available meeting. And I presume that's more than a week from now.
It is January 12th, 2018, and the next time slot will be 6:06 PM.
And at that point, we'll have an answer to the Board of Health. We'll have a mitigation plan. We'll come up with some techniques maybe, or at least put them on the table. I'll discuss with the client about the deck.
well, not, it's just, I was using that as an example. You have, you know, a deck and a garage that based on your client's needs, maybe that can be part of the proposal to meet us closer to that
Yeah, oh, I get it.
planting requirement.
Yeah, I get it. Any other
So
questions?
I'd like to encourage the staff to, you know, think creatively about this,
Sure.
and you'll want to keep in touch with the staff on this.
Oh, certainly. Any other questions?
So,
At this point, he's requesting a
so we need a
continuance.
motion for continue it until January 12th at 6:06.
Yeah, request for additional information.
I believe it's January 11th.
Sorry, it's January 11th. It's the next
Sorry.
day. It's mislabeled, my apologies, January 11th.
The copy of the calendar, though, that you guys have, it does have January.
Good, good. We'll all be here at the same day.
Go on a Friday.
So make sure you take this one.
So the motion on the floor is to continue it to the 11th of January.
Correct, it's 6:06 p.m. 6:06.
And to request that the mitigation, revised mitigation plan.
Oh, absolutely,
Is that it?
absolutely.
And-
Yeah, we'll have the
so-
answers.
yeah.
They may not be the ones you want to hear, but we'll give you the answers.
Additional information, opportunity to get feedback from the client and mitigation plan.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, so,
We can take a vote to accept the continuance.
let's see, did we get a, did we have a motion?
I move close an issue, no, we're not, no.
We're
Move that we
requesting-
continue this hearing till the next available
January
slot,
11th.
which is January 11th,
January 11th at 6:06 p.m.
6:06.
At the request of the applicant.
at the request of the applicant, and request further information relating to a revised mitigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
I need to, Bud and I both need to excuse ourselves to get over to the Community Preservation Act meeting, so Caitlin will remain in my stead to finish out the meeting. And there is one more agenda hearing that's been withdrawn, so that'll be the next, and then Caitlin has a post-hearing agenda item.
Good job, Kate. Got it withdrawn.
Okay, so, do we need to take any action on this thing withdrawn?
I think there's someone here who wants to say something.
This is
We have
Garrett.
to vote to accept the withdrawal.
Right.
Call it.
Okay,
I
This
think,
is the, we're gonna.
we can do that after.
We're
the-
opening.
are you a butters for this last hearing? Okay,
Okay,
Okay.
sorry,
We're open, we are now
sorry.
opening, we're now opening the hearing, the 624 hearing for Garrison Development LLC, 17 Island Road. This is for the proposed amendment of order of conditions, 432855, to allow for single-family homes, septic system upgrade, and landscape hardscape improvements. So, the understanding is we're gonna request that this be withdrawn, is that correct? All right.
Right. So,
Is there any discussion?
We have members of the audience.
We're abutters to what you're going to be
Would
discussing.
you like to address the commission on this?
Not right now, we're just here
find
to
out.
listen.
Okay. Gotcha.
So,
But there's a reason for it.
Well, if you have any comments you would like to put on the record at this point, the hearing is open.
so do we have a request from the applicant to,
I don't see anything written, but
I don't see anything, we're trying to, do we have something from the applicant to continue this application? It doesn't say in our agenda.
I believe it was withdrawn, so
This person's no longer
that's
applying.
different than a continuance.
Right.
It
Correct.
should be somewhere in your folder that
Yeah,
we
that's all we
withdraw the
have.
request to amend the order of conditions
okay.
for 17
The applicant is
by the.
withdrawing their request.
But
So
since
then-
we, since we,
I've got the letter here, withdraw the request to amend the order of conditions.
yeah, so, but since the hearing is open, if you would like to put a comment on the record, you're welcome to do so.
Well,
You do need to identify yourself.
okay, my name is Richard Hoffman.
Can you come up to the mic,
I'm
sir?
sorry, but
Thank you,
it's recorded, so we need that.
Okay.
appreciate it.
My name is Richard Hoffman, and the back end of my lot is adjacent to the back end of 17 Alma, which was on the agenda tonight for Garrison Development. We came here to see exactly what they had in mind for plans, because about a year and a half ago, they came and decided that they wanted to put a cell phone tower on this lot.
All right.
And we had a discussion
Yeah,
about
remember
that. Okay. So my idea tonight was to come to see what their idea is of a house plan. Okay, just to see if we're talking the same language, you know. Is a house or what is it? So that's why we're here tonight.
Okay,
So as I understand, you said it's been withdrawn.
yes.
Correct.
So, you know, there will be a, you know, if any kind of plan goes forward in the future, there'll be a new issuance of
You will be notified.
The cards, you'll be notified and so forth.
Okay. Thank you
So
very
we're
much.
going to vote on that now, and the vote is to,
I don't think we need
yeah,
to vote on that.
we do need
You have to accept the withdrawal.
We do need to
Accept the
accept the withdrawal.
Okay.
Motion to accept the withdrawal for 17 Alma Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so it is withdrawn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
So,
Okay, so if you'd like to go ahead with the post-agenda,
Sure, and these are the permits and COCs to be signed. No crossing off, by the way, I was told to tell you guys that, so don't mess
Do it
up
right
your
the first time,
signature
guys.
or cross it off, because it affects them reporting it at the registry.
Don't.
So you do it in pencil first if you must, but no, just kidding. So I'll just make this fairly brief. It's just a quick update. I'm sorry if I repeat myself on a couple things. I just gave this to the Board of Selectmen, but I also just updated too with activities that have occurred in the past week. So I will just get to it then. So we have the live, so we just launched that interactive trail map. There's been an article in the Enterprise about it. Clay and GIS helped me launch it. So essentially it's under the Conservation Department website under things to do and see in Mashpee. It's called Interactive Trail Guide, and this is how the interface looks. It's similar to our interactive trail, interactive map we use to determine jurisdiction in town. So essentially same interface like I just said, and this is just an example of you would click on one of these trails, and they're all activated, if you will, on the left side of the panel. They're all clicked off. So you would click on the trail, and it would open the trail guide and the trail video if there's one associated with that. So I was just gonna quickly show you on the website how that works. Sorry, I wasn't
nice car.
in here before.
A Bugatti?
Excuse my doing it this way. Okay, so we're on the Conservation Department website. It's under things to do in CN National Conservation Lands, Trail Map Interactive. La la la. Okay, and there's also a link to the website and the trail guides on the website as well. So you would click on John's Pond and as an example, and it will link you to the trail guide. And apparently that's not gonna happen here. Oh wait, just kidding. It's gonna open in that form, but anyways, so that's a really great and easy way for, especially as someone new to town, to just kind of get a good snapshot of everything that we have available as far as trails. There's one that's missing. It's the Flat Pond Trail down by South Cape. I don't have that GIS data, but if I can get that, I would like to. And those 3 trail videos that Dylan made, this is an example of one of them. I don't necessarily need to start it, but just to show you that that's how that works. So, all right, and then back to the presentation.
Nice.
So just a few updates on the refuge. I got the map framed for Town Hall finally, which is great. So it's right at the entrance of public uses, because it's a pretty big secret, which it shouldn't be. So that should hopefully get it more out there. And back in September, I went to DC, met with the, may have already told you guys about that, but I met with the our congressman's staff, just advocating for the refuge and a visitor center, which is something that is really, really important, and hopefully at some point in the future we will get that secured. But there's just, as I'm sure you're aware, the refuge system is not funded well at all, and if anything, it's just getting less funding as time continues in this political climate. So it's just that much more important to advocate for your local refuges. And I actually really want to start going to their local offices too, Keating's, Markey's, and Warren's. They actually have some on Cape, so. We had the annual meeting November 2nd. I know, I believe some of you were there. So that was really great. Justin Fleming did a presentation about the Sea Run brook trout. So I recently attended a trail conference in Leominster, Mass. I did some networking. Hopefully I can get the Jeep Club to help pick up some trout at Johns Pond. Brought up some interesting points about the sensitivity of wildlife when you're on a trail system. And it's actually fairly detrimental in a sense, but not to say that that's going to change anything now, but it's just something to keep in mind, how much people's presence can affect wildlife negatively. However, our trail systems are designed with that in mind, so it's just something I kind of, in the future really want to be cognizant of, especially the Greenway project, but I know that they've done their due diligence there. And the Tree ID course at Garden in the Woods in Framingham, Mass, a really cool place. It's kind of an educational, interactive educational forest area, if you will. Not a really good description, but that was really informative, just to be more informed in general as the assistant agent. And as of last week, I went to the Coastal Resiliency Conference at Webner. That was extremely informative, and I will hopefully be able to parse out some information learned there that I could share with the commissioners. It's very pertinent to the future of permitting and the inevitable sea level rise that is going to occur in this century. So this is just a couple cute little pictures about the tree conference I went to. And AmeriCorps, our specialized Mashpee land stewards, have completed a few projects in the past month. They are absolutely amazing. They're always amazing. Fortunately, I'm just getting more experience and more comfortable, so things are just being more smooth, and projects are completed on time, and and I mean, really, I have to give them the credit mostly, but they really outdid themselves. They started a few projects with me that they haven't done yet with other service partners. So with that said, I can't attest to more to how quick learning they are and how they take problems upon themselves and solve them. So just as an example, they added trail steps to Santua Pond Preserve. They do need to be backfilled with gravel, but this was the first day of that activity, first time they'd done trail steps, and then, oh, sorry, this kind of actually shouldn't be there, but they finished it. The next time they came, they did about 3 times the work in the same amount of time with less people, because they just had it down pat. So this is just also to help mitigate runoff at Santua Pond. This is a very heavily gouged out area, and it's steep too for people to walk. So not only is it safer now, it's going to help with mitigate the runoff situation. And it's right next to the fish ladder too, so I mean, that went really well. They also stabilized a portion of the Quashnet River that has been subject to heavy ATV use, unfortunately, which really degraded the banks, as you can see in that picture. It's the middle picture all the way to the bottom right and kind of the top left. Those are those really heavily gouged out areas. The picture on the bottom left, you can see that's it before they actually added all the woody debris, which is the same mechanism used by the Sea Run Brook Trout Coalition to try to improve the habitat in the Santuit and Mashpee rivers, where they've been extirpated and recently reintroduced. This is the Quashnet River, where they're actually apparently still very prevalent, which is great. But just in general, this type of work needs to be done. These kind of gouged out areas really reduce the flow and make it harder for the herring to pass, especially during migrating season.
Is this the one right here, the fish ladder?
Yes, this area is very close to the fish ladder. So there actually was a big downed tree next to the fish ladder that's been there since that big windstorm. And AmeriCorps chainsawed that tree, used that tree material to introduce woody debris to these banks and stabilize them. Again, under the guidance of myself and really mostly Justin Fleming, who was there actually that morning too to give a demonstration, which was just fantastic. He's just been great. He also did the presentation at the Friends of the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge annual meeting, so he's just been wonderful advocating for the work. But they got that all done in one day. They even removed the table off in the top right, or the middle right corner of that middle picture, they got that done, and they got the tree removed out of Quashnet. Those were 2 additional things that they did not have to do, that they got done in one day. And I must also say that that project and this project was finished in the same day by the same group of kids, split up. It's actually, I can't even, it makes me so happy.
Great.
And then, just a few weeks ago, they chainsawed some down trees from that windstorm. At Pickerel Cove especially, there were some big ones that would have stopped anybody from even passing it to get down to the water, so that was really great. Eagle Scout project, you guys may have seen it already, but it's done. 95 Timberlane Drive, same kind of story, adding water bars, making it safer access for people. It's also a reestablishment of the kayak landing area. And again, it'll help mitigate some runoff too when they remove some invasives as well. So it's just a general improvement of the area that was being used anyways, but now it's much more responsible. So the Facebook page, these are just a couple highlights, videos, people, projects. I really need to be better at posting, but this is just an example of the types of things that you need to post to keep people engaged. You really just need to keep posting. That's the real thing, and the real limiting factor too. And videos, people love videos, all that kind of stuff. So we're waiting to hear back about this Mass Division of Fisheries and Wildlife Habitat Management grant. You may have remembered I did secure funding for the Santua Pond waterfowl habitat restoration, but unfortunately we couldn't sign the contract. But we went for it this year with actually the forest fire management folks actually wrote the grant, so that was great because they want to reburn some of the area off Gray Hay Road. This kind of reburning revitalizes the understory and is good for species such as New England cottontail and the eastern box turtle. Also, we did get the money for the Santua Mills Road culvert replacement, at least to do the initial studies for that. Not necessarily the work though, because that's actually that's basically a choke point in the river, and it's almost undoubtedly is negatively affecting the passage of the fish, brook trout and herring alike. Cleaning up illegal dumping, the area off of Gray Hay Road, Holland. This is Holland Mill Road, another dirt road, and this big fire pit area, which it's obviously a very attractive area to do that, and it's also very easily accessible for the public. They can go down Mercantile Road. It's open on either end and ends at the Red Brook Road. So it is, again, open to the public. It's technically the Mashpee Pine Barrens, which is part of the refuge. It's near the tribe's property. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised at all, but they have already started to have fires again here and throw their beer cans all over. I actually got this to a clean slate with help, of course, from DPW and some land stewards, and I think Dale may have been there one day too, I'm not sure. But unfortunately, it's just slowly building up again, so we do have some cameras on that road. Hopefully I'll be able to access them soon and see if we can.
Where's the entrance point to that dumping
It's
area?
on Mercantile Road. There.
Way at the back of Mercantile?
No, it's right off of Gray Hay Road South, that first left onto a dirt road.
Intersects Mercantile, that's how they go in?
Yeah, it's completely open to the public. I mean, anybody can go down there. If you not.
Or they come in from Great Hay down off
Either way.
Red Brook?
Honestly,
One way.
either way, it would be just as easily for them to get in. It's completely open on either side, and I don't believe that, and I don't even want to entertain the thought of limiting access there at all, that particular stretch of road. But that fire pit area, there needs to be something done there. It's just, it's ridiculous. Before we know, we'll have some forest fire that's not controlled, even though they do the controlled burning around there, so it's kind of ironic. But anyways, this is just some additional cleaning up that we've done. Lots of shopping carts down by the Quashnet Woodlands at the Renda property. Unfortunately, that was a real bad problem, but we kind of got a lot of those out of there. But nip bottles just everywhere always. So frustrating. That's actually in the Mashpee Rivers and Mashpee Herring Run. Isn't that nice? It's just kind of flipping in there at the step.
They're everywhere. So.
I know. It's upsetting. I think legislation would be good to put on that. But so just general improvements. You guys, I'm sure you've seen this. I may have brought it up before anyways, but we just rebuilt some of those pollinator boxes, added that pollinator garden to Santua Pond Preserve. Just want to propagate those as much as possible in town. Not only does it actually cut back on DPW's maintenance of lawns, it's contributing to the health of the pollinators and the town in general, especially because we're a green community. So repainted that kiosk in Mashpee River Woodlands, added this keep boats off beach grass signage, added a couple no-take carrying signs to Quashnet and Santuit. They actually weren't, Quashnet and Santuit, they weren't there. They were at the Mashpee River, so that was probably a good thing to have, so we added that. And last but not least, that citation, the 3 citations from this significant infraction. We had the magistrate hearing on the 2nd of November, and we're gonna uphold the $600 of the $900, and the person was very compliant, and we're giving him till March to pay, especially considering it's the holidays and all that kind of stuff. And he showed up, and he was very, very contrite, and his insurance company will also eventually be paying for the replacement of that guardrail. Right now, there is we did add a piece of wood, not that you really could even drive through there anyways, it's hard to even imagine how we got there, but it's blocked off anyways, so. All right, well, that's all I got for you guys, thank you for your time.
Did I understand that you also presented this to the Board of Selectmen?
I did,
Cool, great.
and, yep, it was very well received from what I, from what I saw. But they're just being really nice, whichever, I'll take both.
Pardon?
You have the forms. The things we signed.
Yes, they're here.
Okay, just pass them down.
Do you need them?
Yeah, they're going in the folder.
Gotta make sure.
I usually give them to her.
Oh, yeah, that's all right, I'll take it, yeah. No worries. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
so we have a motion.
we have no need for motion.
No, we're gonna adjourn.
Information. Well, for adjourn, but
Is that
don't
what
we
you're
have
saying?
still one more item?
Nope, that was it.
That was it.
John Adams, he's done? Did I miss that because I came in late?
Yeah, did we not discuss the
What about
nature
John
tours?
Adams?
Oh,
at
I'm
the
so
beginning?
sorry. I apologize. I did not bring that up earlier. He unfortunately has to reschedule till January.
Okay,
But we will have it most likely at the 11th meeting. 11th.
okay,
Great.
Okay.
okay, I didn't know.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.